started like any other stormy night. The wind howled through the towering pine trees, and sheets of rain lashed across the windshield of Dr. Jonathan Reed's Ford pickup. The wipers slapped back and forth, barely keeping up with the deluge. As a seasoned veterinarian with more than 25 years of experience in rural Washington state, Jonathan had weathered dozens of emergency calls like this. But tonight felt different, unsettling. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as the truck crept along a winding, muddy back road. The headlights barely cut through the fog and rain. The call had come less than an hour ago. A man named Caleb Jensen, owner of a secluded ranch on the outskirts of the Olympic Forest, had phoned in a panic. "My mare, Willow, she's in labor. But something's not right," Caleb had said, his voice shaky and urgent. "Please, Dr. Reed, I need you here now." Jonathan didn't hesitate. He had packed his emergency kit, threw on his raincoat, and jumped into the truck. Still, the urgency in Caleb's voice replayed in his head. There was something he wasn't saying. The narrow road twisted and turned through dense woodland, branches brushing against the sides of the vehicle. Eventually, the faint orange glow of a barn appeared through the mist. The silhouette of the structure was barely visible, but it was enough. Jonathan pulled up and stepped out into the storm. Caleb stood near the barn's entrance, tall and wiry with a weathered face and wild, nervous eyes. "Dr. Reed," he called out, waving him inside. "She's in bad shape." Jonathan grabbed his bag from the passenger seat and rushed inside, boots sloshing through ankle-deep mud. The moment he stepped into the barn, the scent of wet hay and iron-heavy rain-soaked would hit him like a wave. Willow, a stunning chestnut mare with a white blaze down her nose, was lying on her side in a padded stall. Her body trembled with each labored breath. Sweat darkened her coat, and her eyes darted wildly, filled with distress. "She's been restless all day," Caleb said, pacing nearby. "Then about 3 hours ago, she just dropped. I've never seen her like this." Jonathan knelt beside Willow and gently ran his hands along her distended belly. Her breathing was irregular, and her muscles were twitching. "She's definitely in labor," he said, keeping his voice calm and measured. "But something feels off." As he prepared his gloves and disinfectant, thunder cracked overhead. The barn roof groaned under the pounding rain, creating an ominous rhythm. Willow's vitals were holding, but her body language told a different story. She was struggling not just with labor, but with something deeper, something unknown. Jonathan glanced up at Caleb. Were there any issues during the pregnancy? Illnesses? Strange behavior? Caleb hesitated for a second too long. "No, nothing. It was all normal." He avoided Jonathan's gaze. Jonathan narrowed his eyes slightly but said nothing. He returned to Willow's side, whispering softly, "It's okay, girl. We're gonna get through this." As minutes dragged into an hour, the contractions grew stronger. Willow cried out, a sound that cut through the storm and sent chills down Jonathan's spine. He reached forward to guide the newborn out, but the moment his hands touched it, his breath hitched. It wasn't a foal. Covered in a slick, translucent membrane, the creature was smaller than it should have been. Its limbs bent at unnatural angles, its proportions all wrong. But the most disturbing feature was its eyes. Large, unblinking, shimmering faintly with a soft bluish hue. Eyes that radiated an unsettling intelligence. Not the gaze of a newborn animal, but something else. Caleb stepped forward, pale and wide-eyed. What is that?" Jonathan didn't respond at first. His hands trembled as he held the creature up to the barn's dim light. A faint, musical hum escaped the thing's throat, a sound unlike anything he had ever heard from a horse or any living creature. "It's alive," he finally whispered. Caleb stared at it in disbelief. "We need to keep this quiet," he said suddenly, his voice sharp, almost fearful. "No one can know about this." Jonathan turned to him slowly, his jaw tightening. "Caleb, what aren't you telling me?" Before Caleb could respond, Willow let out a low, mournful whinny, her entire body convulsing. Jonathan placed the creature down gently and rushed back to the mare's side. instincts kicking in as a vet. But his mind reeled with a single terrifying question. What did she just give birth to? Jonathan's hands moved quickly, checking Willow's pulse and breathing. Her body trembled, drenched in sweat, her breathing shallow and erratic. She's going into shock, he said aloud, trying to remain calm despite the chaos unraveling around them. We need to stabilize her now. Caleb snapped out of his frozen stance and grabbed a wool blanket from the nearby rack, tossing it to Jonathan. Together, they draped it over the mare's shaking body, trying to preserve her warmth. Jonathan prepared an 4-drip from his med kit, inserting the needle gently into her vein. Meanwhile, the creature, Willow's bizarre offspring, was moving. Unsteady legs wobbling beneath its strange, slender body, it staggered across the straw-covered floor. It made no attempt to flee or hide. Instead, it moved toward Caleb. Jonathan glanced up and caught the strange look in Caleb's eyes. Not just fear, recognition. The creature paused in front of Caleb, tilting its head slightly, almost as if it were studying him. Then it emitted another soft hum, melodic and resonant, almost intelligent. The sound hung in the air, eerie yet calming. What the hell is going on? Jonathan asked, his voice tense. You knew this might happen, didn't you? Caleb didn't respond immediately. He seemed paralyzed, staring at the creature like a man confronted by the ghost of a secret long buried. Finally, he whispered, This wasn't supposed to happen. Willow let out a soft cry, bringing Jonathan's focus back to her. Her trembling was subsiding. Her breaths, once shallow and labored, were now steadier. And oddly enough, it was happening in sync with the creature's hums. Jonathan looked between them in disbelief. It's calming her, he said. It's like they're connected. Caleb took a step back, shaking his head. That thing isn't her foal, he muttered, eyes filled with dread. It's not natural. The creature turned its gaze toward Willow, inching closer. Jonathan instinctively stepped in to intercept, unsure of its intent. But Willow didn't seem afraid. In fact, she responded with a soft whicker, her ears flicking toward it. Jonathan was stunned. They've bonded, he said quietly. Whatever this thing is, she accepts it. No, Caleb said sharply. You don't understand. That's not some miracle of nature. It's a mistake. A creation that never should have been born. Jonathan's patience snapped. Then start talking. Right now. What aren't you telling me? Caleb exhaled shakily, looking over his shoulder toward the dark corners of the barn as if afraid something, or someone, might be listening. This ranch, he said, didn't always belong to me. It was my uncle's. He was a researcher. What kind of researcher? Geneticist. Obsessive. Brilliant. Dangerous. He believed animals could be enhanced, engineered, pushed beyond their natural limits. Jonathan's stomach turned. Are you saying this creature is the result of one of his experiments? Caleb nodded, guilt thick in his voice. When I inherited the property, I shut down everything. Or so I thought. But something remained. Maybe it was in the feed, the water. Maybe Willow was exposed without me knowing. Or maybe it was planned. The confession hit like a punch to the gut. Jonathan turned back to the creature, which now stood beside Willow, its luminous skin glistening in the dim light. It blinked, slowly, thoughtfully, watching them both. This changes everything, Jonathan whispered. A sudden noise interrupted the moment. A loud bang, like something heavy striking metal. The barn's main doors shook violently. Both men turned, startled. A group of shadowy figures stood silhouetted outside against the driving rain. One stepped forward, his voice cold and calculated. We're here for the asset. Jonathan instinctively positioned himself between Willow and the creature. His heart pounded. Who the hell are you? He demanded. The man took another step inside, coat flapping in the wind. Step aside, doctor. This doesn't concern you. But Jonathan didn't move. Neither did Caleb. In that moment, something shifted in both of them. Whatever this creature was, mistake or miracle, it was alive. And now, it was theirs to protect. The air inside the barn grew thick with tension. Rain pounded against the tin roof as the shadowy figures stepped further inside. Their heavy boots squelched against the muddy floor, each step deliberate, precise. The leader, a tall man in a long black trench coat, stopped just a few feet from Jonathan, his expression unreadable under the dim light. "Step aside, Dr. Reed," the man repeated, his tone calm but authoritative. "That creature belongs to us." Jonathan squared his shoulders. "It's not a creature. It's a newborn. And it's alive. You're not taking it anywhere." Caleb moved beside him, his fists clenched, fear in his eyes but something else too, determination. "This is private land," he said through gritted teeth. "You've got no right to be here." The leader smirked slightly. "You have no idea what you're protecting. That thing is the result of decades of unauthorized genetic research your uncle never should have started. We've been monitoring this ranch ever since he vanished. We knew something would surface eventually." Jonathan felt his gut twist. "So you've been spying on this property? Waiting?" The man didn't deny it. "We're not here for a conversation. We're here to contain a threat." As if sensing the growing hostility, the creature took a few hesitant steps toward Jonathan and Caleb, placing itself between them and the men in black. Its shimmering coat pulsed faintly, and it let out another melodic hum, softer this time, almost mournful. The effect was immediate. The tension in the air lessened, ever so slightly. Even the armed intruders seemed to falter for a moment, blinking as if caught in a trance. But it didn't last long. "Now!" the leader barked. The others moved quickly, fanning out to surround the stall. One of them raised a tranquilizer gun and took aim straight at Willow. Jonathan threw up his hands. "Don't! If you shoot her, she could die. She's just given birth. Her system can't handle the trauma." The gunman hesitated, glancing at the leader for orders. But the creature acted first. It let out a sharp, piercing cry, higher in pitch and vibrating with a strange, otherworldly resonance. The sound bounced off the barn walls and sent the intruders staggering, hands flying to their ears as they cried out in pain. Jonathan felt it too. A deep, bone-rattling hum that didn't just fill the air but seemed to move through it. Yet somehow he and Caleb weren't affected. Nor was Willow. It was as if the creature had selectively targeted their attackers. The leader stumbled but managed to stay on his feet. His voice was strained. "It's manipulating sound frequencies, like it knows how to affect our equilibrium. That wasn't in the reports." "In the reports?" Jonathan snapped. "You've seen others like it?" The man's eyes narrowed. "No, but we suspected this was possible. That your uncle had succeeded." Caleb took a step forward. "He didn't succeed. He created something he couldn't control. Something he buried. We were never supposed to find it." "But we did," Jonathan said, his voice low. "And now we have a choice. Protect it, or destroy it out of fear." The leader's jaw clenched. "You're making a mistake, Doctor. That thing isn't a child. It's a weapon." Before Jonathan could reply, the creature emitted another low hum, this one slow and steady, wrapping the barn in a calm that felt almost sacred. Willow's ears twitched in response, her body visibly relaxing. The rain outside began to ease, as if even the storm had paused to listen. The moment passed in heavy silence. Caleb leaned in close to Jonathan. "We can't stay here. We need to move her." "All of them." Jonathan nodded. "My clinic's about 12 miles out, tucked in the foothills. Remote, secure. We can keep them safe there, at least for a while." The leader, still recovering, narrowed his eyes. "If you leave with it, we will follow." Jonathan looked him square in the face. "Then I suggest you stay out of our way, because this isn't over. And whatever you think that creature is, you might be wrong." With the intruders momentarily stunned, Jonathan and Caleb sprang into action. They gently fitted a halter over Willow's head, coaxing her to her feet. The creature followed closely, never leaving her side. Outside, The storm had eased to a light drizzle. The truck was ready. Time was running out, as the three of them, man, mare, and mystery, prepared to flee. Jonathan knew in his heart that this night would mark the beginning of something far bigger than any of them could have imagined. Something born not just of science, but of choice. Jonathan slammed the truck's tailgate shut. Securing Willow in the makeshift padded bay, he had hastily prepared with old blankets and hay bales. The creature climbed in beside her without hesitation, its iridescent body pressing gently against hers as if it knew she needed comfort. Willow let out a soft whinny in response, her breathing steady but fragile. Caleb jumped into the passenger seat and slammed the door. "We've got to move now," he said, glancing nervously at the barn, where the leader and his men were beginning to recover. Jonathan nodded, his jaw clenched. "Hold on." The truck's engine growled to life, tires kicking up mud as they pulled away from the barn into the dark woods. Headlights pierced through the misty rain, bouncing across the winding forest road. The adrenaline in Jonathan's veins felt like fire, fueling each decision, each sharp turn. But within moments, he saw them. Headlights, multiple sets. "They're following us," Caleb said, voice tight. "I see them," Jonathan replied, pushing harder on the gas. The truck fishtailed slightly on the slick ground, but he held control. Trees loomed close on either side of the narrow road, their branches clawing at the windshield as they raced deeper into the forest. In the rearview mirror, the other vehicles drew closer, dark SUVs with blacked-out windows, their drivers undeterred by the weather or terrain. Jonathan's mind raced. Willow was too weak for a chase like this, and the creature, whatever it truly was, seemed to sense the danger, its glow dimming slightly, almost like it was conserving energy. "We're not going to outrun them on the main road," Caleb said, gripping the dashboard. "I know a way." Jonathan's voice was calm but urgent. "There's an old service trail about a half-mile ahead. Logging trucks used it back in the day. It's rough, but they might not risk it." Caleb didn't hesitate. "Do it." The moment the fork appeared, Jonathan yanked the wheel hard to the right, sending the truck onto a narrow, overgrown path. The tires jolted over rocks and exposed roots, the suspension groaning in protest. Branches scratched and snapped against the sides as they barreled through. Behind them, the pursuing vehicles struggled to follow. One clipped a tree and spun out, its headlights vanishing into the darkness. But at least one remained. The leader's SUV stayed in pursuit, relentless and closing. As the storm rumbled overhead, lightning lit up the woods in ghostly flashes. Thunder cracked so loudly it made Jonathan flinch, but he kept going. Every second mattered. In the back, the creature suddenly raised its head. A new hum began, high, harmonic, piercing. Jonathan felt it before he heard it. A pressure in the air like static, building fast. The pursuing vehicle swerved violently and skidded, its tires screeching against the mud. The driver tried to correct, but the SUV clipped a fallen log and launched sideways, flipping once before slamming into a thick pine tree with a deafening crunch. Caleb turned, watching in stunned silence. That hum, it did that. Again. Jonathan didn't answer right away. He stared ahead, eyes wide, heart pounding. He could feel it now. This creature wasn't just an accident of science. It was aware. It was defending them. But why? And how far would it go? As they burst from the trail and onto a gravel stretch of road leading toward the foothills, Jonathan finally exhaled. The headlights behind them were gone. For now. "We can't run forever," Caleb muttered, still watching the creature through the rear window. "They'll come again. Others might come too." Jonathan nodded, hands gripping the wheel tightly. "Then we buy time. Get to the clinic. Regroup. Learn everything we can about it." He didn't say what they were both thinking, that they were no longer in control of what happened next, and that this was no longer just about a mare in labor, but about something humanity wasn't ready to face. The storm had softened to a drizzle by the time Jonathan's truck reached the gravel road that curved up toward his veterinary clinic, nestled in a secluded stretch of foothills just outside of Pine Creek. It was a modest facility, a two-story log building with an attached stable and a few emergency stalls, rarely visited by anyone without an appointment. Tonight, it would become their sanctuary. Jonathan eased the truck around the last bend and pulled into the gated drive. The floodlights mounted above the clinic's entrance flickered to life as motion sensors triggered their beams. Caleb jumped out first, running to open the barn doors while Jonathan guided the truck into position. He climbed out and made his way to the back, where Willow lay resting quietly. Her breathing had steadied, though she still looked exhausted. The creature, silent now, remained at her side. Its shimmering coat seemed less radiant than before, dulled by fatigue or perhaps the energy it had used to defend them. Carefully, Jonathan and Caleb helped guide Willow down the ramp and into a recovery stall padded with straw and lined with warm blankets. The creature followed, never more than a step behind her. As soon as she was settled, Jonathan checked her vitals, blood pressure, temperature, heart rate, all within cautious limits. "She's stable for now," he said with a sigh. "But I want her on fluids and under observation." He turned toward the creature, who now sat curled near Willow's flank like a loyal companion. It blinked slowly, watching his every movement. Caleb stepped closer to the stall door. "It hasn't made a sound since we got here." Jonathan nodded. "I think it knows we're out of immediate danger. Whatever it is, it's not just reactive. It's aware." They watched in silence for a long moment. Then Caleb asked the question Jonathan had been dreading. "What do we do now?" Jonathan looked at him, then back at the creature. "We study it, observe, learn everything we can, before someone else tries to take it again." He motioned for Caleb to follow him into the main building, locking the clinic's steel-reinforced door behind them. Inside, Jonathan went straight to the surveillance monitors mounted on the wall. The cameras fed live footage from the clinic perimeter, the barn, and the nearby road. "All clear for now. We've got maybe a few hours," he said. "If those men were part of a larger group, they'll send backup. We need answers before they show up." Caleb crossed his arms. "You think it's some kind of weapon?" Jonathan shook his head.
No.
"I don't know what it is, but I know what it isn't. It's not dangerous in the way they think. It didn't attack out of malice. Protected us. Protected her." Caleb sat down, eyes distant. "My uncle always believed nature could be improved, that animals could be more than what evolution allowed. I thought he was crazy. Until now." Jonathan stared at him. "He didn't improve nature. He altered it. And now we have to decide if what he created is a miracle or a mistake." A sharp tone interrupted them. The motion sensors on the northern field had triggered. Jonathan spun back to the monitors. "Headlights. Multiple. They're back," he said, his voice a whisper. Caleb paled. "Already?" Jonathan's heart began to pound. This time there wouldn't be a warning.
No standoff.
Whoever was coming now wouldn't hesitate. And as he looked back toward the barn, where Willow lay resting beside a creature that by all logic should not exist, he realized something. This wasn't about secrecy anymore. This was war. The air inside the clinic grew thick with anticipation. Jonathan stared at the surveillance screen as two dark SUVs rolled to a stop just outside the property gate. Their headlights bathed the gravel road in harsh white, cutting through the lingering mist. "They found us faster than I expected," Jonathan muttered, reaching for his emergency radio and sliding a drawer open beneath the reception desk. He pulled out a weathered metal lockbox, opened it, and retrieved a small handgun. He checked the magazine, then set it down. Caleb blinked at the weapon. "You're really planning to use that?" "I don't plan to," Jonathan said calmly. "But I'll be damned if I'm going to let them hurt her or that thing." A voice echoed outside. A loudspeaker. "Dr. Reed, you have something that doesn't belong to you. We're not here to negotiate. Bring it out. Now." Jonathan felt his blood run cold. "They're not wasting time with threats," he said. "They're here for one thing." He looked to Caleb. "Secure the back of the barn. If they breach the clinic, they'll try to flank us from both sides." Caleb nodded and grabbed a flashlight and crowbar, then sprinted out the back. The wind had picked up again, whispering through the trees, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Jonathan returned to the barn. Willow remained lying down, breathing steadily. The creature was beside her, but as soon as he entered, it looked up, alert, aware. Its glowing coat began to pulse faintly, like a heartbeat. He knelt beside it, his voice low and steady. "They're here for you, but I won't let them take you." The creature stared into his eyes, and for a moment, Jonathan felt something. Transfer. Not a word, not a sound, but an impression. Fear. Not its own, but fear for them. Then it hummed, soft and low. The stalls seemed to warm around him, as though the walls themselves were vibrating with unseen life. Willow stirred gently, responding to the tone with a sigh of peace. Jonathan stood. "You're not just intelligent," he whispered. "You feel. You're trying to protect us too." Then the first gunshot shattered the silence. Glass exploded from the front windows of the clinic. Jonathan ducked instinctively and rushed back inside. On the monitors, men in tactical gear were breaching the property. Guns raised, faces obscured by helmets and visors. They were trained. This wasn't a rescue team or local law enforcement. This was a recovery unit. He bolted the inner door and ran to the barn's main entrance just as Caleb returned, panting. "They're flanking both sides. At least 6 of them." Jonathan grabbed a flare gun from the supply shelf and shoved it into Caleb's hand. "If we can't hold them, fire this toward the west tree line. That's our fallback route." Caleb nodded, but then stopped, frozen in place. "John, look." The creature had emerged from Willow's stall, its legs still shaky but firm with purpose. It walked slowly toward the barn door, where the first of the intruders was now forcing his way inside. Jonathan stepped forward, ready to block the creature. "Get back. Stay with her." But the creature stopped and tilted its head, staring at the approaching man. Then it emitted a new tone. "Hi. Pure." Piercing. The intruder staggered mid-step, clutching his helmet. "What is that?" he gasped, falling to one knee. His weapon clattered to the ground. From behind him, another operative rushed in, only to collapse as well when the tone intensified. Jonathan shielded his ears. Caleb fell to the ground beside him. But neither of them was in pain, only overwhelmed. The creature's hum became a sustained resonance that shimmered through the air like a wave of light. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the sound ceased. Silence fell. The 2 intruders lay unconscious. Their bodies slumped in the hay, breathing, but incapacitated. Jonathan turned slowly toward the creature, whose glow now pulsed brighter than ever. "That wasn't defense," he said, breathless. "That was control." The creature turned to him again. Its eyes, deep, ancient, and full of emotion, seemed to ask the question no one had dared voice. "Will you protect me, or fear me too?" And Jonathan, for the first time that night, felt the weight of the answer settle heavy on his soul. The barn was still, eerily so. Dust floated in the air, illuminated by the dim emergency lights. Jonathan's chest rose and fell as he tried to catch his breath, the aftermath of the creature's resonance still buzzing faintly in his ears. Caleb sat slumped beside a support beam, his face pale with awe and disbelief. "I've never seen anything like that," Caleb said hoarsely. Jonathan nodded, eyes still locked on the creature. "Neither have I." The 2 intruders lay unconscious on the floor, their equipment scattered. Jonathan approached carefully and checked their pulses. Alive, stable, but utterly incapacitated. Whatever the creature had done, it hadn't killed. It had neutralized them, and that changed everything. "We need to get out of here," Caleb said, standing unsteadily. "If there are more coming, that thing can't protect us forever." Jonathan turned toward the stall where Willow rested. She looked better, still recovering, but breathing evenly, her eyes calm. And the creature remained close to her, never leaving her side for long. "We're not leaving her," Jonathan said flatly. "We take both." Caleb hesitated, then nodded. "But where?" "The clinic won't hold. They know where you are now." Jonathan paced, running a hand through his wet, disheveled hair. There's a wildlife refuge in the Cascades. Remote, off the grid. A buddy of mine runs it, Dr. Logan Myers. Former biologist, now a conservationist. He owes me. If anyone can help us study and protect this thing, it's him. Caleb raised an eyebrow. You trust him? With our lives? No. But more than I trust whoever just sent in that tactical team. Before Caleb could respond, the barn door creaked open. Jonathan spun around, heart leaping into his throat, only to lower the gun he had reflexively raised when he saw the silhouette. It was the man in the black coat, the leader, alone, unarmed. He stepped forward slowly, one hand raised in surrender. You've made quite a mess, he said, glancing at his unconscious men. I warned them not to approach too aggressively. Jonathan didn't move. What do you want? To talk, Caleb scoffed. You had your chance. The man's gaze settled on the creature, who now stood halfway between Willow and the humans. It watched him carefully, ready, aware. I underestimated it, the man admitted. We all did. We thought it would be instinctual, animalistic. But it's aware, selective. That's far more dangerous than we realized. Jonathan lowered his voice. You call that dangerous? It didn't kill your men. It stopped them. And that's exactly what scares me, Dr. Reed, the man replied. A weapon that can choose when and whom to affect. That's not an accident. That's evolution, or worse, design. He stepped closer. Jonathan blocked him instinctively. You're not taking it. I'm not here to take anything, the man said calmly. Not tonight, but others will come. Others who won't ask questions or hesitate. They'll burn this place to the ground with you inside just to erase what's been done. Jonathan's jaw tightened. So what are you saying? The man looked him dead in the eye. I'm saying, you need to disappear. Take her and vanish. Because if you don't, next time I won't be the one knocking. He turned, stepping back into the rain without waiting for a response. Moments later, the sound of a vehicle faded into the distance. Caleb stared after him. What the hell was that? A warning, Jonathan said. And maybe a test. He looked at the creature, still glowing, still silently watching. Then he turned to Caleb. Pack the essentials. We're heading into the mountains. Tonight. The rain had returned with a quiet persistence, blanketing the forest in mist as Jonathan loaded the last crate of supplies into the back of the truck. Bandages, medications, blankets, food. Every second felt borrowed. Every movement urgent. Willow stood shakily beside the truck, a thick canvas blanket draped over her back to shield her from the cold. Her legs trembled with fatigue, but she was alert, almost as if she knew the road ahead would not be easy. The creature remained by her side, never more than a foot away, its glowing coat flickering like a fading flame. Fuel topped off. We've got maybe 300 miles in the tank, Caleb said as he slammed the rear cab door. His face was tense, pale under the low barn lights. You think your guy Logan's gonna be there? Jonathan climbed into the driver's seat and glanced at the rearview mirror, where the creature was now lying curled beside Willow in the padded bed. He's always there. He lives off the grid, doesn't even own a cell phone. If we make it to him, we buy time. If we don't. He didn't finish the sentence. Caleb didn't press. They both knew what was at stake. Jonathan turned the key. The engine roared to life. Moments later, the truck eased down the muddy drive, headlights cutting through the trees like knives. The gate creaked shut behind them, and the clinic, the only sanctuary they'd ever known, faded into darkness. The road ahead was long and winding. Jonathan chose back roads that twisted through canyons and dense forest routes, avoiding towns, main highways, and anything with a cell tower nearby. He drove for hours without stopping. Caleb stayed alert, watching every curve, every turn, every flash of movement in the shadows. The deeper they drove into the mountains, the stranger the creature became. It began humming again, low at first, then rising in pitch. Not loud enough to hurt, but strong enough to make the air feel heavy, like the truck itself was being watched or shielded. Jonathan glanced in the mirror. The creature's glow had returned, stronger than ever. "I think it knows we're being followed," he said, gripping the wheel tighter. Caleb stiffened. "I don't see anyone." "You won't, but it senses something. Same way it sensed danger back at the barn." The tension in the truck grew thicker with each passing mile. Trees blurred past. Mist clung to the windshield. And then headlights, far behind them, flickering through the fog. "Company," Caleb muttered. Jonathan didn't respond. He pushed the truck faster. The tires skidded slightly on the slick road, but he didn't ease off the gas. The creature raised its head. Its hum grew louder, no longer cautious, but assertive. A warning. And then it happened. The fog thickened. Not naturally, but as if summoned. Within seconds, the road behind them vanished in a white curtain. The pursuing headlights flickered, then disappeared entirely. Caleb stared in disbelief. Did it just hide us? Jonathan didn't answer. He was too stunned to speak. But deep down, he knew the truth. This creature was more than a hybrid, more than a lab experiment. It was something new, something that could change everything. And they had only just begun to understand what it was capable of. As they climbed higher into the mountains and left civilization behind, Jonathan realized one thing for certain. They weren't just running anymore. They were protecting the future. Dawn was breaking over the jagged peaks of the Cascade Mountains when Jonathan finally pulled the truck off a narrow, unmarked trail and into a hidden ravine. Mist clung to the pines like smoke, and birds were just beginning to stir. There, nestled between two steep ridges, stood a weather-worn A-frame cabin. Solar panels dotted the roof, and a large, steel-fenced enclosure stood nearby, designed not for livestock, but for recovery. The perfect refuge for wounded creatures, and secrets that couldn't afford to be exposed. "Logan," Jonathan called as he climbed out of the truck, boots crunching against the gravel. "It's Jonathan Reed." A figure emerged from the treeline a few seconds later, tall, broad-shouldered, with a gray beard and wild eyes that scanned every angle before approaching. He held a shotgun loosely in one hand but didn't raise it. "John," he said cautiously. "It's been a while." Jonathan stepped forward. "I wouldn't be here unless it was urgent. I've got something I can't explain. I need your help." Logan glanced at the truck. "You bring another stray animal?" Jonathan hesitated. "Sort of." Caleb jumped down from the passenger seat and opened the back. The creature was curled beside Willow, watching silently. Logan's eyes widened as he caught sight of it, then narrowed as he took a step forward, slowly. "What the hell is that?" "I don't know," Jonathan said, his voice low. "But it's not what we thought. And it's not just an animal. It's something more." Willow let out a soft whinny as if sensing they were safe. The creature rose to its feet, unstable but elegant, and stood between her and Logan. "Easy," Jonathan said gently, stepping between them. "It protects her. It won't hurt you unless it feels threatened." Logan studied the creature. "That thing's not natural." Jonathan met his gaze. "Neither is what's chasing it." After a long pause, Logan lowered the shotgun. "You've got 5 minutes to explain." Inside the cabin, over coffee brewed on a propane stove, Jonathan and Caleb told Logan everything. From the emergency call at the ranch, to the unnatural birth, the tactical strike, and the creature's strange powers of sound and perception. Logan didn't interrupt. He just listened, eyes narrowing with every revelation. When they finished, he leaned back, rubbing his forehead. "You're not crazy, because if you are, we all are." "You believe us?" Caleb asked. Logan nodded. "I've seen enough in my life to know science doesn't always have clean edges. Your creature is not a monster, but it's not a miracle either. It's a message, something made by hands that shouldn't have." He looked out the window toward the pen where Willow was now resting under the shade of a tall pine, the creature sitting calmly at her side. "But you're right to protect it," he added. "If the wrong people get a hold of it, they'll turn it into something worse than a weapon." Jonathan looked out as well. "That's why we came. We need time, a place to study it, learn what it's capable of, and figure out what it wants. What it wants, Logan said, turning toward him. You think it wants something? Jonathan nodded slowly. I do. It's trying to communicate, not just protect itself, but connect. Logan exhaled and stood. Then we better give it the space to do that. But you need to know, John, this won't stay quiet forever. And if word spreads. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to, because they all knew. The real threat wasn't just those who were chasing it. It was the world. Once it found out the truth. Night fell quickly in the mountains. Logan's cabin, surrounded by dense pines and insulated from the modern world, became a fragile island of warmth and light in the darkness. Inside, the fire crackled gently in the hearth. Outside, the air grew colder, and the silence of the wilderness took over. Jonathan stood by the barn window, watching the creature through a narrow slit in the wooden wall. It hadn't strayed from Willow's side since they'd arrived. It slept beside her, stood when she stood, and mirrored her subtle movements. But there was more, something deeper. This glow wasn't just light anymore, pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Logan approached quietly, holding a worn thermal mug. It's like they're connected, like it's linked to her biology somehow. Jonathan nodded. It's more than instinct. It's memory. Memory? Logan asked, raising a brow. Jonathan turned from the window. Earlier today, when we were on the road, I had a moment. The creature touched me just briefly, and I saw something. A glimpse. A lab. Scientists. Procedures I didn't recognize. It was like it was showing me what happened to it. You mean, it shared a memory? Logan asked, voice low. Yes, and it didn't feel like a flashback. It felt like intent. Like it wanted me to see. Logan took a long sip of his drink, then exhaled. You're not just dealing with intelligence here, John. You're dealing with consciousness. Before Jonathan could reply, a soft hum echoed through the night. It was the creature singing again. Jonathan and Logan moved to the barn entrance and looked out. The creature was standing now, its glowing coat casting light across the hay. Willow rested beside it, calm and undisturbed. But the creature's eyes were fixed on something far beyond the stall. It began to walk slowly toward the fence, its movements unhurried but deliberate. It stopped at the edge of the enclosure, lifted its head, and emitted another hum. Only this time the sound had weight. It was layered, like multiple voices speaking at once, interwoven frequencies vibrating through the ground. Jonathan felt it in his chest, like a memory trying to break free from a locked door. And then it happened. Images not in his eyes but in his mind. Jonathan saw a sterile chamber, monitors for drips. A young Willow restrained on a metallic platform, her eyes wild with fear, needles penetrating her skin. A glowing embryo suspended in a cylindrical tank, twitching under faint light. Then cut to black. He gasped and staggered back, hand gripping the barn's support post. Logan caught him. What did you see? Jonathan's voice cracked. The lab, Willow, was taken. They used her. They implanted something in her. He looked toward the creature. No. Someone, Caleb, who had just entered with an armful of feed, stopped cold. Wait. Are you saying this thing was grown inside her as part of an experiment? Jonathan nodded slowly. It's not just bonded to her. It remembers her. Maybe even chooses her. She's more than its mother. She's its anchor. The three men stood in silence, the gravity of the revelation settling around them. And then Logan said the thing none of them wanted to voice aloud. If it remembers what was done to it, it might not just be running. Jonathan turned toward him, eyes narrowing. It might be planning something. At that exact moment, the creature turned its head and stared directly at them, its unblinking eyes gleaming with purpose. It knew they were watching, and for the first time since its birth, Jonathan wondered, was it here to be protected, or to protect something far greater than them all? At 2:37 a.m., the security alarm tripped. A sharp, digital beep pierced the quiet of Logan's cabin, rousing all three men from a restless sleep. Jonathan was already halfway to the surveillance monitors before the others had even registered what was happening. "North tree line," he said, narrowing his eyes. "Movement." Caleb rubbed his face and leaned in beside him. "Could be animals." Jonathan shook his head. "Too coordinated. That's formation movement, humans. At least 5. Logan swore under his breath and grabbed his rifle. "Told you it was only a matter of time." Jonathan bolted for the barn without another word. Heart pounding. The creature had already sensed the intrusion. Its body was glowing faintly, rising from its rest beside Willow. Its eyes were focused, fixed on the darkness beyond the fence. Willow stirred beside it, uneasy. "They're here," Jonathan said as he entered. "We need to move fast." Caleb arrived moments later with a flashlight and gear bag. They cut through everything. There were no tracks. These guys know what they're doing. Logan appeared in the doorway. "We've got maybe 10 minutes. Tops." But the creature didn't move. Instead, it walked to the center of the stall, stood tall, and began to hum. This time deeper, slower, like the low vibration of the earth itself. The lights in the barn flickered. The radio on the shelf crackled with static. Outside, the wind suddenly picked up, howling like a warning. "What's it doing?" Caleb whispered. Jonathan stared in awe. "It's broadcasting something." Indeed, the frequency wasn't just sound. It was energy, an encoded signal that filled the air with invisible tension. And far off in the distance, the approaching men stopped. On the surveillance screen, the heat signatures flickered, then froze. Not gone. Paralyzed. Logan's mouth fell open. It shut them down. Jonathan looked toward the creature. "No." It spoke to them. Through something deeper than language. Suddenly, the signal ceased. The glow faded. The hum died. And the creature collapsed. Jonathan rushed forward, catching its fragile body before it hit the straw. Its skin shimmered erratically, flickering like a dying star. "It's exhausted," he said. "Whatever it did, it drained everything." Willow let out a distressed whinny, nudging the creature gently. "We can't stay," Logan said urgently. "That was a delay, not a win. When they recover, they'll bring more." Jonathan looked down at the creature in his arms. His chest rose and fell, shallow and strained. "If we don't get it help," he said softly, "we'll lose it." Caleb grabbed the keys. "Then let's go. We don't wait for a second wave." Jonathan turned to Logan. "We need your off-road access. You still have the tunnel entrance near the stream." Logan nodded. "Still usable. Leads a mile west into the next valley. Remote enough for a helicopter if we had one." Jonathan looked at him, eyes determined. "Then that's where we'll go. There has to be someone, somewhere, who won't treat this like a weapon." Logan grabbed his pack. "You're going to need a miracle to pull that off." Jonathan lifted the creature into his arms, its weight featherlight but pulsing with energy he didn't understand. He looked at Logan and said, without hesitation, "Then it's a good thing. We already have one." The night sky was beginning to shift, its inky blackness giving way to the faintest brush of indigo as Jonathan's truck roared through the narrow mountain trail. The creature lay wrapped in a thermal blanket in the back seat, its glow now a faint flicker, like a lighthouse barely clinging to life in a raging storm. Willow was secured in a small livestock trailer hitched to the back. She remained calm, almost unnaturally so, as if she could feel the creature's fading energy and was lending her own strength in silent solidarity. Caleb sat beside Jonathan, eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. Logan followed close behind on a dirt bike, guiding them toward the hidden tunnel that would take them to the next valley, and, hopefully, to freedom. "There," Caleb said, pointing as the tree line broke open. A narrow crevice loomed ahead, overgrown with vines and moss. Barely visible to the untrained eye, it looked like nothing more than a rockslide. But Logan veered into it confidently, disappearing behind the veil of ferns. Jonathan followed without hesitation. The truck dipped, scraped, then squeezed into the mouth of the forgotten tunnel. Inside, darkness swallowed them. The air turned damp and cold. Water trickled along the edges of the rocky floor. It felt like they were driving through the artery of the earth itself. After what felt like forever, light appeared at the far end. They emerged into a hidden basin surrounded by cliffs. Towering evergreens framed the clearing. A stream snaked through the center, and birds chirped faintly, oblivious to the war playing out in the world just miles away. Jonathan stopped the truck and jumped out, opening the back door. The creature stirred. Its large, unblinking eyes met his, dim but conscious. "You're going to make it," Jonathan whispered. Logan parked beside them and ran forward. "There's a satellite blind spot here.
No drones. No signals.
We've bought time." As they lifted the creature out of the truck and laid it on a canvas tarp near the stream, it suddenly let out a soft, rhythmic hum, barely audible yet perfectly pitched. Jonathan knelt beside it. "What is it?" Then he saw them, like dozens of tiny points of glowing light emerging from the trees, hovering, watching, not drones, others. They floated silently, shapes not fully defined, but somehow familiar, like the creature, different in form but connected in essence. "Oh my God," Caleb whispered. "It wasn't running." Logan took a step back. It was calling them. The creature lifted its head. Its glow intensified. The wounds, the fatigue. It all faded as the others drew near. They surrounded it, pulsating in response. Then, in one simultaneous motion, they began to hum, resonating with a power that made the ground tremble. Jonathan shielded his eyes. And then light, brilliant, blinding. Pure. When it faded, the creatures were gone. So was the original. Only the soft ripple of the stream remained. Willow stood beside the trailer, calm, as if she had always known. Jonathan dropped to his knees, not in defeat but in awe. "They weren't just saving it," he said slowly. "They were retrieving one of their own." Caleb exhaled deeply. "And it used us to get here." Logan crossed his arms, stunned.
No.
"Trusted us to help." They sat in silence as dawn finally broke over the trees. The war they feared hadn't come, but the message was clear. There are things in this world we can't control, things we were never meant to weaponize. And sometimes, the most powerful beings are the ones who choose mercy over might. As the golden light bathed the basin, Jonathan stood. Whatever this was, whoever they were, the world would never be the same. And maybe, just maybe, that was a good thing.